are listening to the podcast for learning the language of A Course in Miracles so you can understand the meaning, embody the message, and live the teachings as a way of life. Welcome to episode 38 of this podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Jennifer McSween, creator of this podcast, and the Course in Miracles practice coach for taking those who are studying the Course from information to application. On this week's topic, or this week's episode, the topic is understanding how to learn the most difficult and most important lesson taught in A Course in Miracles. The most important lesson in A Course in Miracles, and the one that we struggle to learn the most, is workbook lesson number 31. I am not the victim of the world I see. The reason I say it's the most important lesson is because A Course in Miracles teaches that forgiveness is the means to miracles. Forgiveness, as defined by the Course, is letting go of the belief in the power of illusions. And from the perspective of the Course, the world is an illusion, having no power to affect or victimize you in any way. So in order to practice forgiveness and learn to experience the miracles the Course aims to teach, you cannot see yourself as a victim of the world or anything in it, for that matter. And the reason I say it's the most difficult lesson to learn is because what every one of us Course students at some point struggle with most in our study and in our practice of the Course is knowing how to stay in our peace or remain unaffected by painful or challenging circumstances, situations, or conditions in our lives and in the world that, judged according to appearances by us or the form in which they show up, we believe or perceive them to be very, very real, despite the Course's teaching that they're all illusory. To use a line I like to borrow from the Course, struggling to learn this most important lesson, or any other lesson for that matter, that the Course teaches, need not be. And I don't recall how I became aware of this idea that I'm about to share, whether I read it in the Course myself or somewhere, or if I heard it from Dr. Ken Wapnick, who I look to as my mentor and teacher, simply because he had an incomparable depth of understanding of the metaphysics of the Course, along with the ability to articulate it in a way that anyone could understand. But the idea or perspective, call it what you will, and I'm going to paraphrase a bit here, is this, is that the Course is a complete self-supporting system in which nothing that is necessary is omitted and everything that is included is required. Now, how or why this matters and what it has to do with you learning this most important lesson without struggle is that it means the Course is not only designed to teach us what we need to learn, but it is also set up to teach us how to learn what it's teaching. And Workbook Lesson 31, I'm not the victim of the world I see, is a prime example of that setup and design in action. And let me tell you what I mean. From the beginning of the text, in the short form of the introduction, the Course is teaching us to look at the world and all of life, for that matter, as a school, and see everything in it as part of the curriculum. Now, if we hold this perspective, we're literally laying the foundation for not feeling victimized by anything that shows up in our life or in the world, but instead to see it as a lesson, providing an opportunity to learn something we want to learn or required to learn. Let me share with you what I mean or why this is so. If you sign up for a course or class, it's either because you want to learn about the topic or the subject matter, or you're required to learn it to prepare you or qualify you for something, right? When you attend the class, most likely you'll have a text that will provide you with the information about the subject matter. You'll be given exercises and assignments. You might even have some lab work. Now, when the teacher gives you exercises, assignments, or lab work, you don't say, "Why are you doing this to me? Why are you giving me this?" You know, you don't feel like this shouldn't be. You don't look at it as something that's being done to you or as if you're being victimized or persecuted in some way, right? You may sometimes feel that the workload might be too heavy or too much and even a bit unfair, but you certainly don't see yourself as being unfairly treated because you're being given homework or exercises or assignments. Your focus tends to remain on the lesson you're there to learn. The concern in your mind is about how can I do what I'm being asked to do so that it helps me to learn the lesson I'm here to learn. The thought of being victimized by what the teacher presents to you doesn't even come up. It's like, this is not persecution or that I'm not being unfairly treated here. This is literally par for the course. Right? So when we hold the course's perspective in the introduction of the text that says life or the world and the world is a school, and look at our very presence here as our wanting to learn something that is being taught here, or our being required to learn something because we are here, we will begin to look at everything that comes into our experience. That is, everything that seems to happen to us, everything that we do, everything and everyone that we encounter as part of the curriculum, presenting a lesson or some aspect of the lesson we're in this classroom to learn. Regardless of the manner of or the form of what comes into our experience, we will literally shift our perception of anything and everything as happening to us without our request, our consent, or desire, and instead look at the way or how it can serve or contribute to our learning. Our focus will be on answering the question, what's the lesson here? How can I learn this? Now, I know some of us already in this experience do believe and or entertain the idea that everything is a lesson, and at times or maybe often ask the question, what is the lesson here, when faced with a painful or challenging situation? The problem, though, is that that question is usually being asked from the perspective that the world is real. And we think the lesson is about doing or not doing something differently on the level of form in the world. So what we do then is we put all our focus and our attention on finding meaning in the situation or the circumstance, looking for the lesson. But that only serves to reinforce the misperception that the world is real, making it difficult for us not to see ourselves as victims of the world. You see, if you begin with the wrong premise, regardless of how logical your arguments, you will not arrive at the right conclusion or the truth. In the short form of the introduction of the text, the course presents the right premise that will support all its arguments in the form of the ideas, concepts, and teachings to support our learning that we're not victims of the world we see and in which we seem to be. That premise is that the world and our life is a school, and everything that shows up or takes place in it is part of the curriculum for helping us to learn the one lesson we're metaphorically here to learn. That lesson is forgiveness, letting go of the belief in the power of illusions. How we learn that lesson and not go off on some wild goose chase thinking, the lesson we have to learn has something to do with anything in the world, is by reminding ourselves in any situation in which we find ourselves feeling victimized, unfairly treated, or not at peace, of what the course says in Workbook Lesson 193 under the heading of All Things Are Lessons God Would Have Me Learn. It says, "Certain it is that all distress does not appear to be but unforgiveness. Yet that's the content underneath the form." In the Course, unforgiveness is just another word for judgment. So all we need do to learn that we're not victims of the world is to stop passing judgment, giving power and meaning to the world along with anyone or anything that seems to take place in it. So whenever you feel you're being victimized by anything or anyone, remember you're in school. Whatever it is that appears to be victimizing you is simply part of the curriculum, presenting you with another opportunity to practice forgiveness, the one lesson you're metaphorically here to learn. And if you're willing, practice forgiveness in that instance. So that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Understanding the Language of A Course in Miracles podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, please leave me a review on iTunes so that others can hear about it, enjoy it, and find it helpful also. And do subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Have a great week and see you on the podcast next Wednesday.